Peace and love, everybody. I'm Royce Fletcher Thomason, and we're here for a brief Sunday Hope and Healing session today. Uh, I'm a little bit zoned out, so I'm not talking as loudly as usual today. I just came out of a really deep meditation. We're not going to be as long today as typically. Um, I mentioned last week, I'm in the process of teaching a class this weekend. This is the level 3, the Transcending the Matrix Level 3 class that we have going on this weekend. And it's in the midst of it now. I'm just broadcasting briefly during the break. The last time that we actually had this class was in 2014. So it's been, and it was the early part of 2014, not the latter part. So it's been well over 8 years, uh, going on 9 years since the last time this particular class was taught. And I just want to check in real briefly, always sending much love and light to everybody who's out there, to every area of your life. And I just want to touch base with you all real quickly today regarding why healing is necessary on multiple levels. Why healing is necessary on multiple levels. And so the reality is that we are multifaceted beings. We exist on multiple levels. And the level on which we're most acutely aware of is our physical bodies. If we stub our toe, we're aware of the pain sensation that registers immediately. If we're feeling hungry, we recognize that it's very tangible. The things that are going on in our, that we're experiencing in our physical bodies uh, are very noticeable. Not all of the things. Pain, for instance, is something that's very, very noticeable, which is why we do a lot of focusing on physical pain, because you can tell if something's happened from one moment to the next in terms of a level of pain that your body is experiencing, or that you're experiencing in your body. And so the reality is that in terms of this work that we do called Transcending the Matrix, we address issues with the physical body, because people are experiencing problems in their body. People are experiencing pain. I know for a fact from personal experience that nobody has to learn to live with physical pain for the rest of their life. There is resolution possible. And I'm not just talking about a drug that's designed to inhibit your nervous system in a way that you don't process the pain. In other words, that masks the pain. It doesn't get rid of the pain, it just makes you ignorant of the fact that it's there, and which can actually create a false sense of security and cause you, or put you in a position where you're doing things that may further activate and may further injure that part of your body that is having some health disparity, right? And so we address physical pain because that's a level in which we operate. We address physical sickness and dis-ease because that's an aspect of our life experience, right? And the reality is that while things can be medicated with some synthetic um, synthetic medicine or some synthetic drug, or something can be cut out, it's still not really getting to what the root of the issue is, because we exist on multiple levels of our beingness. And in our training, the level 1 training, we focus on physical sickness, physical dis-ease, physical pain, and addressing that. But it doesn't stop there. If there's something that's going on in our body temple, so often there is a mental or an emotional link to what's going on. in our physical body. Our bodies are messengers telling us what's going on, what is unresolved within other aspects of our consciousness, within other aspects of our beingness. And also, a person is never going to really get to a place of being profoundly spiritually evolved if they're being easily triggered and getting set off by this and that particular thing. So we focus on mental and emotional healing. Really, quite frankly, where your emotional state is a function to a large degree of your mental state and a function of your brain chemistry and what's going on within your nervous system. All right. And so a lot of times people will have some, issues maybe dealing with addiction. People will have issues like depression, anxiety. People may deal with other issues like having an attention deficit disorder or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. These are labels that we give in this physical world for people who are operating a little bit differently. But the reality is that even a person who's just a huge, incredible jerk, the reason that they're that way isn't just because they're a jerk. It could be that they've had some closed head injury and a part of their brain has been physically traumatized and it's not functioning properly. And as a result of it not functioning properly, they're behaving in the way that they're behaving. People who have trouble controlling their impulses and have a lack of self-control and just find themselves going off on people all the time. It's because there's something in their brain function that's not operating on an optimal level. When a person experiences a nervous breakdown, they've got more energy going across their system than what their nervous system is set up to handle. And so their nervous system is, their sympathetic nervous system is overactive and needs to calm down and relax some. Sometimes for that to happen, it helps to increase the gauging of our wiring. And so we need to experience healing on the mental and the emotional level. And we deal with neurological upgrading and brain optimization to develop those parts of the brain that were underdeveloped, to stimulate those parts of the brain that are unstimulated, and to calm down those parts of the brain like the amygdala um, that might be overstated or over stimulated. I mentioned the amygdala because it's part of the oldest part of our brain, the reptilian part of the brain. All humans essentially have three brains in their head, or three different aspects of the brain. A reptilian brain. All reptiles have these certain components within their brain, and is dealing with um, a lot of it is dealing with instinct. A lot of it is dealing with survival. Really, a lot of it is significantly dealing with survival and certain things of a primal nature. Okay. Greetings, by the way, Samraj. Good to see you here. Sending love and light to you, my friend. And the other person, it looks like you might be tuned in from the Transcending the Matrix group. Um, so we're not showing who that person is, but love and light to you as well. If you're in the group, there's a thing that you have to click to allow your name and image to be shown via StreamYard, because we're broadcasting on Facebook, both on my private Royce Fletcher Thomason page as well as the Transcending the Matrix group, and we're also simultaneously broadcasting on YouTube, and StreamYard is the third party service that we're using to do that. And so if you're in the private group, you have to give permission for StreamYard to show who it is that you are. Actually, I think it's a public group. Angela, greetings, Angela. Send a bunch of love and good vibes your way as well. Always good to see you. And so what I was saying is talking about in terms of this mental and emotional level, and how actually I think I was talking about the different parts of the brain. So we have the reptilian part of the brain, which is the oldest part of the brain. Reptiles all have this part of the brain, um, and that's our most base aspect. It stimulates the fight or flight response, right? Like I said earlier, a lot of the reptilian brain deals with survival and some of those most primal aspects of our existence. And so as it relates to this amygdala, we find ourselves in this fight or flight state when we're not fighting off physical danger. You know, if you think you're being chased by an animal that's trying to kill you and eat you, but you're actually not working anything off, your blood will coagulate at 8 times the rate that if you were actually running away or if you were actually fighting. And so, what happens with this a lot of times in our society today is we have these different fear things going on where we dwell in this fight or flight state a lot of times where certain stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline are being released. They're only intended to be operating for a short period of time. Okay. Um, it's it's not beneficial to the system for us to be operating in that space as a basic um, default setting for where we are most of the time, and that can create a lot of nervous system disorders as well as a lot of physical um, physical problems in our lives. So we deal with the mental and the emotional healing, the neurological upgrading, the brain optimization, and we deal um, with correcting certain damaged parts of the brain uh, and supporting the nervous system, supporting the brain and the whole nervous system in general. Because again, a lot of times we have things that where we're feeling worried or we're feeling anxious or we're feeling depressed or we're filled with rage or hostility or jealousy or envy or bitterness or a sense of vengefulness or regret or despair or hopelessness. None of these things are things that align with who we were divinely created to be. Okay. With that being said, with that being said, we want to be able to be in a position where we're most aligned. Now, the fact of the matter, I said earlier, the mental largely influences the emotional because if you're thinking, if your thinking is misguided, if your thought processes are askewed, that's going to impact what it is that you're feeling. That's going to impact your actual emotional state, which, if you don't get it resolved, is going to show up in your physical state, in your physical existence, right? And so, even beyond that, there's a more sacred aspect of our existence. I say more sacred, relatively, I guess. Um, And that's our spiritual selves. We exist as spiritual beings. Now, you might not be a person who focuses much on spiritual matters. Whether you are a saint or a scoundrel, you're a spiritual being. Whether you're in touch with your spiritual essence or not, that might be a different story. But we all exist spiritually. And that's really the core of where our real problems are. Our fundamental problem as human beings is that we feel disconnected from God, that we feel disconnected from the source that gives us life. Okay, and we go through life, and that's where selfishness and bitterness and hatred and rage and the rat race and all of these different things come from. That's where this sense of um, hoarding and I got to get mine and I don't care who else is negatively affected. That's where these things come from, feeling disconnected, feeling like there's a limit on the good that can come to us, feeling like we're separated from our source. And that's fundamentally a spiritual issue because all of us, anybody who's listening to this, you end up being born into an environment that was not necessarily anything at all like the environment that you were in before you entered into your mother's womb. You weren't created at the point that you were conceived or that your body was conceived. You existed and you came into your mother's womb, right? And then you end up being born into a hostile environment where you were probably slapped on the backside as soon as you came out, all kind of lights going on and people are stressed out and there's chaos going on. That can be a traumatic experience. And so at the heart of really all of our issues, deeper peeling on of the onion, if you will, is feeling separated from God, feeling unloved by God, feeling disconnected from God, ourselves, and one another. And it is in that sense of disconnection that we end up going through a lot of the things that we go through in this journey on planet Earth, that where we experience pain and hardship and suffering and loneliness and all of these other incredibly unpleasant things. And so healing is necessary on all of those levels. Yes, if a person breaks their leg, there's healing that needs to happen. I maintain that a person didn't need healing because they broke their leg. I maintain that a person broke their leg because they needed healing. Okay. And so similarly, all of those other things that I was just speaking about. And so we're multifaceted beings. We exist on multiple levels. Yeah, we have physical bodies, but we're not our bodies. We're ultimately spiritual beings having experiences in this physical realm in a way that we wouldn't have them otherwise. And it can be painful, it can be exhilarating. You know, we've got a variety, we've got a whole spectrum of experiences that we can have on planet Earth. Some of them may be horrendous, and some of them may be incredibly, profoundly joyful and fulfilling, and all kinds of things in between, right? And so the work that we endeavor to do, that we call transcending the matrix. The matrix kind of represents the foolishness of this world, if you will. And I don't say foolishness from a judgmental standpoint, even actually, but foolishness from the standpoint of just missing the mark, just not seeing things as they actually are. And the reality is that there's no spot where God is not. Even in the difficult times that we experience in life, we're not alone in the midst of those things. And actually, depending upon how we look at the different things that are going on in the course of our lifetime, profoundly impact how we experience life as a whole. You know, I mentioned sometimes there are people who are billionaires who never have enough. It doesn't matter how much they get. They always feel like they never have enough. And there are people who live without electricity and without running water and very meager means from a material standpoint that are extremely happy and full of joy. Right? And so it isn't just the external circumstances that make a difference. Certainly, we want things to unfold well for us externally, but what ends up unfolding externally isn't as important as what ends up unfolding within us internally. Yeah, there are a lot of things that we try to control externally. We don't like to feel out of control. We don't feel like to feel like we don't have the answers to things. In fact, when certain things happen and where there's uncertainty, we'll create meaning. Don't we do that? Yeah, we do. We'll create meaning for why somebody's behaving the way that they are. We'd rather control in terms of things working out or things not working out. Sometimes we'll sabotage things working out because we feel that's a way we can control whether it works out or not. That's just a reality of how life unfolds for us on planet Earth. But I want to say to all of us today, beloved, that life can be a beautiful experience. Life can be a wonderful thing. And at the end of the day, there's going to come a time where we're each going to lay our bodies behind. And we'll know more then than we know now. We'll have an opportunity to get an understanding of why we experience the things that we experienced in our lives. We'll have an opportunity to see how it was that we impacted other people favorably and unfavorably in our life's journey. We'll have an opportunity to see beyond all of the judgments that we've cast during the living of our lives, and we'll see things from a much broader, much greater perspective. Well, we don't have to wait until then. We can begin to be transformed by the renewing of our minds now, being allowing ourselves to become open to seeing things from a different perspective than how we've looked at it before. There's no problem. I've said it many times, many times. Greetings, Versandra. There's no problem on this earth that anybody can experience that's beyond God's ability to resolve. I maintain that. And something else I maintain is that the only thing that is real on this earth is love. Why don't I just let that breathe for a minute? The only thing that's real on this earth is love. There are a lot of things that seem and feel very real. But everything that God made is good. If it's not good, God didn't make it. If God didn't make it, it isn't real. And we might see that love manifest on several levels. Speaking of love, I talked about the reptilian part of the brain. The next level is the mammalian part of the brain. Mammals have a part of their brain that the reptiles don't have. Mammals have a part of their brain. Something else that's different in mammals than in reptiles is that for almost all mammals, with the exception of platypus and maybe a couple others, I think it's a platypus, the the baby develops inside the womb of the mother as opposed to just an egg being laid outside of the body, right? It grows within the womb of the mother and then it feeds from milk that's produced within the body of the mother. And there is a bonding that is created in that process for mammals that doesn't show up in reptiles. And there is a chemical, a hormone that is excreted and created called oxytocin, not the drug oxycontin. Sounds similar. Oxytocin. Oxytocin is a bonding hormone. And we as humans, we're hardwired for bonding. We're hardwired for connection, right? It's how we were biologically and physiologically set up. Okay. Certainly how our brains were wired. Okay, for that sense of connection. And then there's a part of the brain that exists in humans, referred to as the cerebral cortex, that doesn't exist in less developed forms of animals, of mammals, I should say. Okay, and it's kind of split into two parts: the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere. And for instance, there are things that humans can do that other animals aren't able to, like create the internet, right? Invent a car. Okay, those are things that your cat and your dog can't do. They're mammals also, but they can't do things like that. There are certain things that they can figure out, but they can't. They don't have those functioning capabilities. All right, and so just like our brains, we exist on multiple levels, and healing is therefore necessary on multiple levels. Please don't shortchange yourself into thinking that you're just a body, or that you're just your body of affairs, or that you're just your thoughts and your emotions. You're much more than that. You're much more than that. And so healing is necessary on all of those levels for you to really be the fullness of who it is that you were created to be. If you're going to operate according to the divine blueprint by which God designed you, then there's some stuff, some baggage that we've picked up along the way in our human experience. Some of it isn't even just ours. Some of it has been passed down through the DNA, through our ancestral lineage. It needs to be cleared up. Some of those things are things that we've experienced, baggage that we've picked up in our life experiences dealing with people in their brokenness. And they kind of passed some of that brokenness down to us, where we may have been, have had experiences of being abandoned or betrayed or belittled, or any variety of things that happen in this physical earth, with dealing with humans operating from a space of brokenness, because we've forgotten who it is that we really ultimately are. And that's beings of pure love and divine light animating a physical body. All right. And so um, I didn't intend to go as long as I did today. Again, we have the uh, Transcending the Matrix Level 3 class that's going on. Just taking a little break from that. I'm a little bit zoned out, um, because we just got out of a really deep meditation, and I had to come immediately into doing this. So that's why I'm in a real mellow space. Uh, but we won't be teaching next weekend. I know last weekend I was broadcasting from a boat. I was on a ship. The name of the ship was actually called the Starship, which is actually super cool to me. 'Cause I'm definitely a star child. Um, so it certainly appealed to my cosmic sensibilities. Um, but so because of that, and I was at an event then, that broadcast was a little shorter too, but uh, you can expect that we'll have a normal broadcast next Sunday. Uh, wow, the 18th. And then on Christmas, I don't know if I'm gonna do a one on Christmas or not. Um, that will be two weeks from today. We'll see. Anyway, God bless you. I love you, and I send you forth always with a bunch of peace and love. Also, real quickly, um, you know, a lot of people check us out on Facebook. Some people find us on YouTube. What I want to mention is check us out on YouTube at Matrix Healing, and subscribe and hit the notification button. That way you'll be alerted whenever we're going live, um, and wherever we're posting some new information. The goal is always to help elevate you, to help inspire and empower you somehow to bring you new levels of hope. And a lot of times I'm actually doing healing during the broadcast. There have been people who've been on the broadcast who had pain or dealing with emotional issues. We've had people who were dealing with COVID, actually, not a person who themselves was dealing with COVID, but a person who was standing in proxy for a loved one who had COVID, and they were able to report that their symptoms became instantly better while we were doing the broadcast, and the healing was going forth. So if you know of anybody who's dealing, and I don't care what the perceived cause of the problem is, if you're dealing with somebody, if you have somebody in your life or you yourself have any type of physical pain in your body, it doesn't matter if the pain is from a broken bone or a ruptured spleen or whatever the case might be. Come and we'll address it for you. Just let us know and we'll address it right during the live broadcast. And you'll get some relief right during the live broadcast. All right. If you have a loved one who's dealing with any other type of medical challenge or any other type of um, sickness, illness, dis-ease, invite them to come on. Send them a link and invite them to come on. I'm more than happy to, in a spirit of service, offer support. We don't have to continue to just suffer endlessly. And I know that the doctors might say it'll take this amount of time. Well, that's understandable. They're just telling you the best that they know. Listen, I did a training with a doctor that had been practicing medicine for 30 years. He said he learned more in a weekend about healing than he did in all of his years of school and 30 years of practicing medicine. I can tell you, I've seen thousands of occasions where people got better from stuff that, in terms of the traditional medical model, let me not say traditional medical model, let me say the Western medical model, didn't necessarily have an explanation for how that would be possible. But again, like I said earlier, there's nothing that's beyond God's ability to heal. And I maintain God as the healer ultimately. Now, I get to be a vessel of the healing, for which I'm very thankful. And you can be a vessel of the healing too. It's just a matter of learning how to access it. If that's something that you're interested in, feel free to reach out to me. You can do that on Instagram, Royce Fletcher Thomason on Instagram, or uh, DM me on Facebook at Royce Fletcher Thomason. Or you can actually even, we have a Transcending the Matrix Instagram page as well. You can send me a direct message on there also. So again, I'm happy to share this. At the end of the day, the more people who are doing this work, the more wholeness there is on the planet, i.e., the less brokenness there is, and people are able to help bring about healing in more and more people's lives. And I'm not just talking about on the physical, but I'm talking about in terms of how it is that we operate. I've seen tumors disappear, I've seen broken bones repaired. Those things aren't the miracle. The real healing is the changed heart, the transformation of the heart. And for those who are practitioners of this work, of Transcending the Matrix, or TTM, which we call it for short, we're redefining our perspective of reality and how we're seeing other people and even how they see themselves. And in the presence of that, there's a greater, more expanded perspective of who it is that we are as people. And there's a much more profound level of compassion that's developed and extending grace to people. And at the end of the day, that's really the healing agent. So God is the healer. We're vessels, and love is the tool. The pure, unconditional love of God is the tool that's used to make the healing possible and cause it to manifest. All right, so that, like I said, I've gone a lot longer than I initially intended today. But I wish you all the best. And again, I send you forth with a bunch of peace and love. Catch you next time.